Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cherries Army YouTube channel. If you're a return subscriber, thank you for joining us. If you're new to this channel, thank you and welcome, and hopefully you'll enjoy this. Interact throughout the show in the chat, and if you do enjoy and want to see more, make sure you subscribe. Also, make sure you hit the like button. It's a new match preview, and tomorrow AFC Bournemouth prepare to take on Bristol City away from home. Two guests I've got with me on this match preview. My first guest is an AFC Bournemouth fan, Aaron Kaye. How are you?
Hi, Kurt. Yeah, doing well, thanks. You?
Yep. And how are you feeling at the start of the week after a good weekend?
A lot better. Absolutely. Buzzing, yeah.
My second guest is a Bristol City fan from the Exiled Robin. How you doing, Paul?
Hello, Kirk. Yeah, good, thanks. And from a footballing sense, certainly a lot better than when we were sort of 7 to 10 days ago at Ashton Gate.
And before we get going, what sort of stuff do you do? Sort of stuff for Bristol City? Just tell us a bit about your history behind it.
I was sort of started a blog right at the sort of outset of Twitter, to be honest, so 10, 11 years ago. Regular blog writing, but I kind of canned that regular stuff about 4 or 5 years ago. Do the odd piece here and there. Just very active on Twitter and Facebook, little bit of Instagram, and also contribute fairly regularly to the One Stream in Bristol podcast and a few other bits and pieces here and there.
Fantastic. And let's get on with the match preview. But first, we'll recap both games for both teams at the weekend. And AFC Bournemouth took on Watford in what was a fiery game. We got over the line. We got back to winning ways. A 1-0 win for AFC Bournemouth and a goal from Dan Juma. Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it wasn't rocket science. We've been saying for some time, Woodgate's first 4 games, a back 4 formation, 4-2-3-1, which we've been crying out for. And then, for whatever reason, he tried to match up against QPR and Cardiff. We didn't play terribly against QPR, but Cardiff, the first half was one of the worst performances of the season. We were 2-0 down. Changes to a back 4. We score a goal and we play much better. So it was no surprise to me, having said that he's going to stick with the formation for the rest of the season, that we went to a back 4, 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. And essentially, I think we just did the basics. There was no faffing around at the back. And the most important thing for me was the fact that there was fight, there was cohesion, there was passion, literally a fight as well at the end of the game, obviously, which has landed us in a bit of trouble. But personally, I was delighted to see it because I think it's brought the team closer together. Everyone was mucking in, and you could see that it was something that they were really came together for.
Was there an argument to say, Aaron, that we might have been underdogs for the first time this season? Could that have helped?
I think so. I think, players quite rightly have come in for a lot of stick. Jonathan Woodgate obviously still has a lot to prove. And I felt that there's always a bit of needle between Bournemouth and Watford. Obviously, we've mirrored each other for the past 6-7 seasons. And then, ever since we picked them to the Championship, there's been a lot of needle between the two teams. So I think there was always going to be a bit of a grudge match. Obviously, both teams fighting for promotion. And I think maybe that's what we needed. I'd like to think that wasn't the only reason we obviously gave that performance. But hopefully we can take that into the rest of the season. It becomes a turning point, because I think if we can play that way with the players we've got, if we add the fight and passion to the clear skill that we've got, then we are a match for most teams, and we should win lots of games. Where we've come unstuck this season is when we haven't competed, we haven't fought for every second ball, and that's what's been our undoing.
Paul, Bristol City played away at Swansea. Officially, I think first game for Nigel Pearson in the dugout. Went 1-0 behind, came back strong, another 3 goals. That's 6 goals in 2 games now.
Yeah, quite the turnaround for a team that struggled to score goals for most of the season as well. Yeah, strange game Saturday. We got absolutely battered in the first half, which might please your viewers. Dan Bentley in goal made 4 or 5 saves. We cleared a couple off the line, and how it was still 0-0 at half time, not quite sure. Anyone knows, to be honest, with I think 3 penalty shouts against us as well. I think the first signs we saw about what Nigel Pearson's about, 2 things really. One, just before the break, our young left back, a lad called Riley Towler, who'd already been booked, made a pretty poor challenge and was probably lucky not to get a second yellow. And even though we were in injury time of the first half, Pearson hauled him straight off and got him off as a substitute, which I thought was interesting. He didn't just wait that 30 seconds and see what would develop. He got him straight off. And then at half time, we switched around. So looking at formations, we started with 3 at the back at Middlesbrough. It was very successful. We started with 3 at the back at Swansea. It was far less successful. So what he did at half time, he switched to a 4. He moved Zach Viner into midfield where he's played a little bit, and totally changed the flow of the game. And I think can't remember the exact statistics, but it's something like 16 attempts to 0 in the first half and 8 in the second half. So quite a change around the middle game. And obviously the goals showed that to an extent as well.
And that would be a second win for Bristol City in a row. Let's look ahead to this game then between the teams, and we'll take a look at the first fixture between the teams, which was back at the Vitality Stadium earlier on in the season. It'll be a game that Bournemouth would eventually win late on, but let's have a look at it in more detail. I mean, Paul, early on, really, you sort of took the early stance within the game and probably had the better chances, arguably.
Yeah, I felt the first half was a pretty good performance from us, to be honest. I thought we showed a bit of footballing ability. We had the lad on screen there, Tariq Baconson, was having an impact in midfield. We played 3 at the back that day as well, so we did have 3 in that central midfield. And I think, certainly for most of the early season, that's how we were playing. And yeah, probably a little bit unlucky to go in at half-time level and still be level. But I think what I felt second half, you just sort of literally stepped up the gear. I think being the Premier League side come down, you looked to step up a gear, and we couldn't quite cope with the threat the whole game, unfortunately.
Like a lot of games this season, Aaron, we've struggled in the first half, but we come good in the second half. Sometimes the game's beyond us when it gets to that point, but this game wasn't. And Arnie Danjuma would come alive and he would score the winner when it comes about. A guy that can just come alive any split second and has that bit of magic in him.
Yeah, I think this game, I remember watching, actually, I watched it with my 2 boys and my father. It mirrored a lot of games in that part of the season where we were nowhere near as good as we can be. But we actually were reasonably solid defensively. I think Asmir Begovic made his customary great saves or so. And I think we always know that if we keep a clean sheet, which hasn't always been easy for us, we have the quality to score goals. And what that happened in this game. Danjuma, who obviously started the season flying, popped up with a bit of magic. He did that quite often in the first few games of the season. And that, as I said, that was a pattern quite early on in the season, that we were winning games, not necessarily deserving to, but just keeping, as long as we can keep the goals against down, we know we've always got goals in it.
You had a flying start to the season, Paul. I think you won the first 4 games. I think you drew the 5th one. When you went into that fixture, was you happy to take a point, or was you looking for more?
Yeah, I think, when you look at this, we've been in this league a few years now, and I think when you see the Premier League sides come down with the parachute payments, with the players, I mean, you certainly still had in your squad at that point. I think we were expecting a couple to leave still by the end of the transfer window at that point. You look at the players you were able to play and bring on, and you've got to be happy with a point away from home, I think, in that sort of game. And that would be our sort of expectation all season. I think a point would have been good. But yeah, we were playing well. Like, we'd started well. I think at that point we just started to get 1 or 2 of the injuries, which have absolutely crippled our season. And we really had a lot of senior players out. In one game 3 or 4 weeks ago, we ended up with, I think it was 12 of 13 first team squad players unavailable for injury, which is, a hell of a task for any manager and a hole in any squad. So we're just starting to pick 1 or 2 of those up. But yeah, as I said, it was a good performance and quite reflective of our early season form.
Another player in there, Paul, that I think was in the highlights was Lloyd Kelly, a player we got from Bristol City. I'll come to Aaron on that in a moment and get his thoughts. But what do you think of Lloyd Kelly and his development in what you've seen and how he was at Bristol City before he moved to AFC Bournemouth?
Yeah, I thought he had a very good game that night, actually, playing at this sort of looked like a conventional left back for most of the time. Lloyd, great prospect. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think as to whether he's still a prospect or has come on at all, because he's got a lot of attributes. He looked good on the ball, very comfortable on the ball. He's got everything really. And when he was with us, he kept making sort of silly mistakes, or odd mistake here and there. And that can always be put down to youth naturally. You hope he's developed away from that a little bit. And I'd say he's got massive potential. It's probably a crucial stage of his career right now, the next year or two, as to whether he really starts to fulfill that.
Project Restart was, I think, the first time we saw Lloyd Kelly in the Premier League, and he surprised us all. We were surprised how good he was. He got moved into that centre-back role to cover Kaye when he got injured. I feel his development's levelled out a bit. I mean, how do you feel about Lloyd Kelly at the moment, although he did have a good game on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, he was injured for so much of last season, and as you say, when Project Restart came along, and he played against Harry Kane and Jamie Vardy, and we won and drew those 2 games, and he looked exceptionally good, pace, power, reading of the game, to the extent that a lot of us were saying if he'd have been fit all season, maybe we wouldn't be down where we were. But he did start this season not so consistent, and I think, as has been alluded to in many previous podcasts, he shifted around left back, left centre back, left of the three, and it's hard for him to get that consistency there. We all know what a good player he is. He is frustrating. He frustrates the hell out of me sometimes with some of his negativity passing. But when he's confident and positive, as he showed on Saturday against Watford and in other games, he really is a threat. Everything, and actually a left back needs as well as a centre back. And hopefully now, again, that's a turning point, as it would be for many of the players, nail down that position for the rest of the season, and go from strength to strength and be a great asset.
And what we'll do is we're going to have a look at Bristol City in more detail. Thanks for joining us. Some excellent chat going on, and I'll put as many as I can on the screen. Let's give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe as well. Let's look at Bristol City just after this. Okay, Paul. So Bristol City, 11th, 45 points, 7 points now off the playoffs. I mean, compared to what the early expectation was at the start of the season, how are you feeling about it?
Well, yeah, disappointing compared with that. Obviously, and Dean Holden's job has gone, because of that. I think you look at the start of the season, we didn't quite know what to expect. We'd fallen away pretty badly the second half of last season, which was a common trait under Lee Johnson, to be fair. We had an unproven manager in place. We had lost our sort of main midfield men in Corey Smith and Josh Brownhill over the sort of summer and the previous 6 months. So didn't really know what to expect. I think if you'd offered most fans, honestly, 9th or 10th at the start of the season, they'd have probably thought that was reasonable. So in that sense, we're not a million miles off where we should be. I think the form has been so bad in the last 2 months, but Holden being sacked just became inevitable. We were starting to look over our shoulders, which may seem crazy when you're 11th now, but we were on a dreadful run. We were starting to look at results at the bottom end of the table and wondering where we were actually going to pick up our 4 or 5 wins that we still needed to guarantee safety. It was that bad a week ago. And a week is a long time in football, as many a famous pundit has said, and it's certainly proven in our case. So certainly on the up now. I think the positivity since Nigel Pearson's come in as boss is incredible. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it in my time following the club, to be honest, in terms of a manager of his prestige and the up it's given the fans from the low where we were. It's just quite an incredible turnaround.
Like we said, back-to-back wins now under Nigel Pearson, one in the stands and one in the dugout after 6 straight losses. They were both away from home, Paul. Does it make it a different task at home? I mean, obviously taking in consideration there's no fans, but is there more pressure on playing at home?
Possibly. I mean, the fans being absent, you'd think would make that a complete no-go. But our form over the last 2 years we've been much better away from home. We've been one of the best sides in the division away, picking up lots of results, and have actually struggled to put teams away, especially the lower teams. We seem to struggle to put teams away, but we've very rarely scored more than 2 goals in the last 2 seasons. We've won lots of 1s and 2s, and if you're that sort of team, you are going to struggle to put teams away when they come and sit with 10 men behind the ball, which they are more likely to do away from home, obviously. So it's interesting to see how this side will evolve, whether we've scored 3 because of Pearson or because we just had a bit of luck or because of a change of attitude of the players. Who knows? I think what we have got is we've got a couple of very good strikers when they're in form in Nahki Wells and Managerial, and they haven't been in form for large parts of this season. So are they just in form because there's a new manager, or are they just reinvigorated? Who knows? And they will probably hold the key for a lot of the rest of our season.
On the other side of the coin, Aaron, AFC Bournemouth have only won 4 games away from home and drawn an awful lot of matches, probably too many. So how does that play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to so many of those away games where we probably should have got something. Certainly, I mean, Swansea and Cardiff, for all three of those spring to mind, where we were the better team. All three. And even if you think back to QPR and so many other games, Brentford, even when we lost, I don't know what it is, but I think potentially it depends on the setup. I'm not sure whether you feel that you're more possession based or counter attacking or whatever it's going to be. Because against Watford, we had the least possession we've had for many games, and we've got the best result we've got for many games. Whereas in so many games, as Kurt would point out, we've had over 65% possession and ended up drawing or losing the game.
I got a stat for you, Paul. Okay,
Go on.
Here's a stat for you. You haven't drawn a game in the league for the last 20 matches. Now, if I was a betting man, and I'm not very good at it, one team wins tomorrow, surely.
Probably, although I think there's a reason the bookies make their money, don't they, by having odds like that. But I think that has been fairly typical of where we are. When we get on top, we seem to be full of confidence and able to play some good football. When we get down, we've struggled. I think, again, at the start of the season, I think we won our first 9 matches, but we actually took the lead in. So if we took the lead, we won a game. But then the opposite was true if we conceded the first goal and went behind. So interesting to see how Saturday turned out. The fact we did go behind and actually managed to come back was quite a rare event for us. Got to draw sometime, haven't we?
You're not blowing the stats away from what I can see in the Championship, but you have got players in your team, the likes of Naki Wells, that have been ripping up the Football League in his whole career. You've got players like Jeju. You've got some younger talent in there as well. There's definitely goals in you if we allow space or we make a mistake.
Yes, and again, we started to see that in the last couple of games. We did it at the start of the season, to be fair. I think the players we had involved at the start of the season, with the likes of Jamie Patterson and Andy Vyman, who are both likely to be injured for tomorrow night, in attacking midfield roles, we say Jeju and Wells. We've got Antoine Semenyo, who's a very hot prospect in a sort of wide striker role, but actually scored his first league goal of his career at City on Saturday in 20-odd games. We have got goals and we have got some counter-attacking ability, and we've got a little bit of pace in key areas. The key, really, I say, is those front two, Wells and Jeju, have really got to come good, I think, for us at the start this way in the season. And yeah, as like any team, you need goal being chipped from elsewhere. And we started to get some of that with some of the youngsters. Tariq Backinson, we talked about briefly earlier, who's contributed a couple from midfield. Zach Viner's getting forward nicely from defence or midfield. And, we always look to have some options when we're counter-attacking, but less so when, as I said before, when teams get behind the ball, we look like we really struggle to have that creativity to really break a team down.
And just looking defensively at the players you have in your team, Paul, you've got players like Adrian Mariappa. And is Alfie Mawson also on your books? I mean, a player that set the world alight initially, but had a move to the Premier League that didn't quite work out.
Yeah, so Mawson's one of those. We've had an awful lot of long-term injuries this season, and I just mentioned a couple. Mawson came to us from Fulham. He was out injured for about 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Came back. There's a little story there, actually. He came on. He played a cup game against Sheffield United. Gave away our first ever VAR decision with a handball on the line. Got sent off, which the referee hadn't spotted. And somehow in that move or the next day he's injured himself and out for the rest of the season. So that's quite an impact in a short period. So no, he's out, Alfie Mawson. Mariappa's played better the last 2 games. He had a shaky start. I think he was probably lacking a bit of fitness for us, a bit rusty, being played a bit out of position at left back or left wing back. He certainly looked better since he's been put in the middle of a back 3 or a traditional 2 in the last few games. But yeah, with Thomas Callas there as well. Jack Hunt's an experienced Championship defender. We have got the players there. I think what we've lacked for most of the season is a proper left side, where we've had, again, long-term injuries to Jay Da Silva and a real lack of consistency just in front of them. That key defensive midfield role has switched around an awful lot of players and an awful lot of combinations, which is going to leave any side susceptible, I think.
Trying to keep a clean sheet, Aaron. Do you worry about players like Naki Wills in their team?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have. I think it depends on the formation we pick again, but as I said, anyone can cause us problems. It depends on what mindset we're in, the defensive lapses we've seen, concentration, certainly from set pieces and from teams who like to try and bully us. but I'd like to think we'll be able to cope, and we certainly have the pace at the back as well. I guess we'll see tomorrow.
Right, Paul, we'll finish up with you in just a moment then. I mean, how do you expect the game to play out? What are you looking or hoping to expect, and what's your score prediction?
I think after Saturday, and I'd say the way we played that first half, where we were in a bit of trouble, I suspect there'll be a push on our side to be a lot more solid. Try and we couldn't get out on Saturday. I think it would be interesting to see how we try and sort of set up solidly against, again, another good side, but managed to get ourselves out a little bit. So we started 3 at back. We ended up playing 4-5-1, but quite an attacking 4-5-1 with midfield runners. And I suspect we might start like that tomorrow night, which means Naki Wells playing wide. It means Antoine Semenyo potentially playing wide. But both were given quite a lot of freedom on Saturday to get forward at times, and midfield was as well. So I wouldn't be surprised at that. Really have 3 in midfield, 4 at back, a line of 4. Try and keep as tight as possible against you, at least to half time, as managers seem to like to do, and then see what happens in the second half.
Was there a score prediction in there?
The score prediction, I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I'll be happy with a 1-1 draw, I think.
Brilliant. Paul, it's been great to have you on. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
No worries. Cheers,
enjoy the game tomorrow, and chat soon.
Thank you. Cheers, Aaron.
Cheers,
See you
Paul.
soon.
Cheers, Paul.
Brilliant stuff. Right, let's just have a look at Jonathan Woodgate's press conference from earlier on then. He was questioned on a few things, including player availability, but he was also asked about the Watford game, Aaron, and the some of the scenes that went on, and he was just glad to see some fight, and he said everyone was in it together. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, he seems to be reveling in it. I mean, not in a bad way, but I just think as we've said before, no one wants to sort of see that necessarily at the end of a game, but I think in some bizarre way, it could bring the squad closer together. You saw everyone, even substitutes, kind of with their masks on, running onto the pitch and grabbing everyone and this and that. And I think it was such an important 3 points and a performance that I think Jonathan Woodgate seemed to be quietly pleased that there was that kind of fight, passion and bite in his squad.
In the background, there's Jefferson Lerma, a player he said that is a player that's undroppable and probably one of the first names on the team sheet. I can't disagree with him at the moment. He's back to his old self. And 2 players in front. Dom Solanke came through the game against Watford with no problems, and Jack Stacey might be in contention. Yeah,
it's interesting because for the last sort of couple of press conferences, he said, Jack's 10 days, 2 weeks away. Then he's 10 days, 2 weeks away. And then suddenly he's now fit and available for selection. So, at this stage of the season with, 13, 14 games to go, it's great to have that extra bodies and everyone getting fit. Obviously, I think it's just David Brooks now. Anyone else? Brooks' main injury?
Yeah, so I think that's about it. There was something in there about Sam Surridge as well, I think. But
that's right, yeah.
I think to Woodgate, Aaron.
Sorry, so
are you feeling? Yeah, sorry. I said we're going to try and put our inner Woodgate now into mode and see if we can predict what he might do. It's time to do this. Right. So off air, before we came on the show, we said it was a back 4 with either a 2 in front or 1 and 2, but we've gone for this. Begovic picks himself. Brilliant again on Saturday. Some crucial saves. And we put Carter Vickers and Steve Cook in there because I think we need to start building that partnership, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I think before we go through the whole team, I think one thing we've noticed throughout the season, what Jason Tindall was doing, and to some degree Jonathan Woodgate is tinkering, is perhaps trying to please the whole squad and bringing players in and out. We're now at the business end of the season, and I think harmony, consistency, it's so important now not to try and just to please everyone. Obviously, everyone wants to keep the whole squad happy. I think the most important thing is consistency. And if you have an 11 or who are performing consistently and building partnerships, as you say, I think that really is the most important thing.
Jack Stacey, I think it'll be too soon for him. I put him in there because Jonathan Woodgate said he might have a chance, but more likely it will be Smith. And now Smith has been brilliant the last few games. He's been like his old self. I think his contract's up at the end of the season as well. Has it made his life a bit easier not having that pressure from Stacey?
Perhaps, but I just think something is clicked with Adam Smith, whether it was the fact that he wasn't a regular, when Jack Stacey was around, because I think earlier in the season, Jack Stacey was clearly the first choice right back, and quite rightly so. I'm a big fan of Jack Stacey. And Adam Smith, as we've seen before, has played on the left because they probably are the two best fullbacks in the club. But we've known that there's the problem with balance when Adam Smith or Jack Stacey plays on that left-hand side. So it really has to be one of the two. But I think you're right. I think Adam Smith has to keep his place. He's been outstanding the last few games, and coupled with the fact that Jack Stacey's only just coming back to fitness, I think certainly for tomorrow it's a no-brainer.
Left back has been a bit of an issue all season. No one's really grabbed hold of it until Saturday when Lloyd Kelly turned up, a player we've already talked about. But does he keep his place for this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly after his performance on Saturday, he's playing against his former team. And as I said, I think that back four, although Stacey's still a question for the rest of the season, that back four really should try and build some consistency. And if they all perform, there's no reason why they shouldn't be the back four for the rest of the season.
I expect Jeff Lerma to be in there because he said he's the first name on the team sheet at the moment. Another player that I think should be on the team sheet straight away, man of the match performance on Saturday, Ben Pearson.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, we have not conceded a goal since whenever Pearson's been on the pitch. And it's no surprise that the two games he didn't even get off the bench against QPR and Cardiff, we lost both games, which baffled quite a lot of us at the time for whatever reason. But I think it is a no-brainer. Those two offer the protection, and I think the four of Pearson, Lerma, Carter Vickers and Cook will do very well for players to get through them. So I think that provides the platform for the other four players who we're going to go through to do their stuff and be creative. So I think, again, fitness allowing, and it looks like Pearson's totally fine in the training video. Pearson and Lerma, for me, if they're fit, have to be the two for the rest of the season again.
If Woodgate is going to have a sleepless night tonight, it might be over this position between Lewis Cook and Philip Billing. And in the chat, we've got Will, Lewis Cook, interesting one. Philip Billing, a player that's definitely come to the fore and been one of our better players since Christmas. Lewis Cook played on Saturday. Does Philip Billing play tomorrow night?
Well, it's interesting. I think if Jack Wilshere hadn't been sent off, it would have been a big call. He could have had a real shout of playing in that sort of forward position. He obviously is suspended for tomorrow. I actually think Philip Billing will get the nod for tomorrow night. Not that Lewis Cook didn't play well at all. I'm a huge fan of Lewis Cook. Obviously, he's been playing the anchor role for a lot of the season and doing exceptionally well, which again, it's great to have that competition for places. But I think the fact that he played on Saturday, the fact that Phil Billing in previous games, certainly recently, in that more advanced role, has been a real handful, very creative, getting forward, away from any defensive duties, which he wasn't so consistent with in the earlier parts of the season in the defensive midfield position. So there's an argument for either, but I think Billing will get the nod for tomorrow night.
With David Brooks out, and Woodgate said he needs to have some continuity between now and the end of the season and some consistency. Do these three places pick themselves with Stanislas, Danjuma and a fit Solanke?
I think certainly yes for tomorrow, and until Brooks is back. We've spoken, Kirk, about the fact that Stanislas is far more effective on the left-hand side. The problem is that Danjuma can't really play on the right-hand side, or we haven't seen him there, but I don't think he'll be as effective. Junior Stanislas for me is got the best football brain in the team, makes things happen. So we are losing something because he then can't cut in. Having said that, maybe with Smith bombing forward, Junior can cut inside and try and pull in a little bit. But I think you're right. I think certainly for now, and the way Arnie played against Watford, those two certainly pick themselves. And as far as Solanke goes, certainly if he's fit, we've missed him. It was the first time Jonathan Woodgate could call upon him since he became caretaker manager and obviously head coach. So I think, again, if he's fit, yes, he brings so much to the team. Certainly with Sam Surridge out anyway, I think it's a no-brainer.
In the changing rooms before the Watford game, when Solanke would have been put on that team sheet, would that have been a bit of a lift for some of those players?
I think so. I mean, there's been so much discussion over Dom over the last couple of years, but this is his season where he has had a consistent run in the team up until his injury. He's obviously scoring goals and still not prolific, still missing plenty of chances. I mean, there's so many games that spring to mind where we probably would have won if he'd have put away what we might call as real good chances. But as you said, he's not a 25, 30 goal a season striker, but he does so much work off the ball. And I think watching him on Saturday made me realise how much we actually have missed him, because he's a link player. He holds the ball up. He's so clever. And then the likes of Danjuma, probably more than Stanislas, Danjuma can then run ahead of him. Where again, we've spoken about that, where Arnie should be the most advanced player, shouldn't go anywhere in his own half, and certainly shouldn't be trying to beat a player in his own half, but keeping him out of our own half is the key. And those two seem to have a really good relationship, and they played together early in the season. So I'm wondering whether it won't be a conventional right and left. I think Danjuma will play a bit closer to Dom, and Junior might sort of drift around a bit. I think that's probably that's what I would do anyway.
A good team, a team that can beat any team in the Championship on its day. And if you're catching up with this not live, let us know what you think in the comments on this squad. Right, this is your opportunity then to let us know what you think the score will be tomorrow night. Get your predictions in the chat and we will show them on the screen. Whilst we're doing that, there are a couple of games going on currently at the moment, Aaron, and we'll just take a quick look. There's some big games over this game week with a lot of teams playing each other at the top and the bottom, I think. But the current scores at the moment, half-time, are Cardiff 1, Derby County 0, Coventry City 1, Middlesbrough 1, Huddersfield 0, Birmingham 0, Millwall 1, Preston 1, and Nottingham Forest 0, Luton 0. The one that sticks out there is the Cardiff City 1 against Derby. We want that to either be a draw and a loss, really, don't we, Aaron?
Yeah, well, the top two there are obviously important for us. If Coventry can hold on or even sneak a win, that would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, Middlesbrough are a funny team because they're kind of right on our coattails and they sort of lose 3 or 4 in a row against really weird teams. So I'm hoping Coventry can get something there. I'd be very surprised if Derby get back into that game, unfortunately, but let's hope. But if not, it will add the pressure to us tomorrow if Cardiff and Middlesbrough both win ahead of tomorrow. Yeah.
Good. And Aaron, I think this is one of your boys. He said, brilliant team. You can take all the credit. Well done. Right, let's get some scores on the board, and that will be a 3-1 from your boy, I think. Daniel is a 1-0. How you doing? Cameron, a 2-1 to AFC Bournemouth. Mark Cole, how you doing? 1-0. Steve is a 1-1, taking a draw. Got another draw there with a 0-0 clean sheet. This one's quite a regular. Sticking with it. 3-1. 2-1, Mark as well. How you feeling about the game tomorrow, Aaron? And what's your score prediction?
Assuming we go for the formation and the team that we just decided, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling that, again, with those 4, as I've mentioned, Carter, Vickers, Cook, Lerma and Pearson, I think will certainly be very solid. Not sure if we'll keep a clean sheet. I think we've always got a goal against in us. But again, I think that platform allows the creativity, and especially with Dom back in the team, I'm going to go for a 2-1.
I'm going to snap that and go for a 2-1 as well. So let's get another 3 points on the board, keep ourselves in the playoff places, and hopefully create some distance between us and 7th. Thank you for everyone who's joined us tonight for this match preview. If you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel yet, do that. Let's get to 300. I think we're about 27 or so away. Would really appreciate that. If you're not following us on Twitter, Cherries Red Army, at Cherries Red Army, you'll know then when the latest content or shows are coming out. So tune in for that. Tomorrow night, we've got lineups live 45 minutes before kickoff. So looking forward to that. You enjoyed yourself tonight, Aaron?
Yeah, really did. Thank you very much for having me, Kirk.
That's no problem, and enjoy the game as well. Thank you for everyone who has joined us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy tomorrow. Let's get 3 points up the Cherries. See you soon.
See you. Bye.